Joining us now is Senator John Thune. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Greta.
Carl spoke about that if indeed there could be a stopgap, they gather 10 or 15 U.S. senators and vote for it. You're about 2 blocks away. Would you be racing over there? Would you vote for any stopgap?
Oh, of course. I mean, I think if we can keep some sort of a bridge resolution in place, if that's what's necessary to get us to where we can approve a longer-term resolution sometime next week, I think that most people would be agreeable to that, as long as the elements of the long-term plan are things that most Republicans could support.
Is this money or ideology? Is it about the difference between $40 billion or $39 billion or $38 or $31 billion, or is this about Planned Parenthood?
Well, it's about spending and debt, and that's what it's been about all along. There's been a big debate about how much we ought to try and trim out of discretionary spending, and it's come a long ways. The Democrats started at 0, and they're now at $40 billion. So I think that this would be by any measurement, a victory in the end if we can achieve that kind of a spending reduction.
You know, I was sort of thinking that was the right, that's the way it was going, until I looked at your floor speech today, and you said that between noon at the time it was given and midnight tonight, that we would be $2 billion deeper into debt. So that sort of that, $2, $4, $6 billion in difference between the two of you began to seem incredibly unimportant. When you look at, like, by noon tomorrow, it's going to be twice as much. By midnight tomorrow night, it's going to be another $2 billion on top of that. So it's the money fuss seemed to take backstage.
Well, it is, but you know, if you think about it, even though it may not sound like a lot, $61 billion translated over a 10-year period ends up being somewhere on the order of $860 billion. So you start talking about real money.
But I mean, that's the thing with the numbers. Everyone plays with the numbers. If you want the numbers to see a lot, you expand it out to 10 years. Well, if you want it to be if you don't want it to be a lot, then you make it 1 year. You
want to make the baseline as low as possible. And right now, the baseline has been inflated, federal spending, over the last 2 years by 24%. What this would do, it would take it back to the 2008 levels, which I think most Americans would find to be reasonable when you're running a $1.5 trillion deficit. But the reason it's important to get this particular aspect of the debate behind us, and this is the unfinished business of last year because the Democrats didn't pass a budget last year, is the trillions that we need to start dealing with in the 2012 budget, and as the debt limit vote comes up ahead of us. The real big dimensions are still ahead of us, and that's where we start talking about the future.
Has a Democratic U.S. senators had any sort of sway with Senator Harry Reid throughout this? Or is this completely, the Republican? Have you had any sort of role in this?
The Republicans in the Senate, at least for the most part, have. It's been kind of this has been a play between the House Speaker, the Majority Leader in the Senate, and the White House. Obviously, there are consultations and discussions that go on all the time with fellow Democrats, and we expect to play a very important role. But I mean, up
until this point, like Senator Harry Reid said, anything to the Senate Republicans in the last 2 weeks, so that you feel like you have any sort of input on this?
Probably not all that much. I mean, I think it's been largely something that he has been involved with, and he's been involved with the White House and the House Republicans. And I think their assumption is that at some point, if they have to, they can pass something with Democrat votes. Frankly, I think if they get the spending reduction level up to where a lot of Republicans can accept it, there will be a lot of Republicans that will support it. And that's why we give great credit to Speaker Boehner, who has really driven the spending issue in these discussions.
Should the American people be disturbed that this is gone to the wire?
Well, I think the American people should be disappointed that this didn't get done last year. I mean, that this budget process is completely dysfunctional in Washington, and that's why it needs to be repaired. It needs to be fixed.
But since January, since the Republicans took over the House until now, I mean, it has not happened till now.
We've had a series of continuing resolutions, and now we're up against this big deadline, and hopefully this will be the deadline that triggers a long-term agreement. But frankly, I don't think it's unusual, because typically what happens is you don't get the best deal until you get up against the deadline. And I think that if we can get the best deal possible and get the maximum amount of spending reductions, that's good for this country, that's good for our future, it's good for our economy, it's good for jobs.
Senator, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Greta.
Hope you get some rest, because you guys might be working all night long. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.